time now for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the globe this week. Nigeria plans to spend 58.18 trillion naira in the 2026 fiscal year, a christened budget of consolidation, renewed resilience, and shared prosperity. The budget represents an increase of 6% over the 2025 budget and comes with a deficit of 23.85 trillion naira. RI's correspondent Omar Bazwaye reports on President Bola Tinubu's presentation of the appropriation bill to the National Assembly.
Thank you very much.
With this ritual of laying the budget, President Bola Tinubu fulfills the constitutional mandate of presenting Nigeria's annual national spending to the National Assembly. But for the president, the event means more than that. It's a defining moment for self-appraisal of his reforms in the last 2.5 years, with the president admitting the pains that have come with the reforms, but believing that the worst days are over.
Today, I present a budget that consolidates our gains, strengthens our resilience, and takes this country from out of the dark tunnel of hopelessness, from the survivor to growth.
Tinubu's optimism rests squarely on the strict and effective implementation of the 2026 budget of 58.1 trillion naira. The president directs his Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and the Accountant General for the Federation to keep to appropriation timelines.
Let me be clear. 2026 will be a year of stronger discipline in budget execution.
This was as the president declared an end to the era of multiple budgets, warning that there will be no room for excuses. A close look at the budget reveals Tinubu's 3 key areas of priorities for 2026. The president allocates 5.41 trillion naira for security and defense as he declares war on terrorists, bandits, and armed groups, as well as their sponsors.
Under this new architecture, any armed group or gun-wielding non-state actors operating outside the state authority will be regarded as terrorists. Bandits, militia, armed gangs, armed robbers, violent cults, forest-based armed groups, and foreign-linked mercenaries will all be targeted. We will go after all those who perpetrated violence for political or sectarian ends, along with those who finance and facilitate their evil schemes.
Next on the president's priority list is education, with 3.53 trillion naira. Health and social security coming third with 2.48 trillion naira, representing 6% of the total budget. The budget, however, comes with a deficit of 23.85 trillion naira, representing 4.28% of the gross domestic product, and based on a parameter of $64.85 per barrel of crude oil, and a production figure of 1.8 million barrels per day, and an exchange rate of 1,400 naira to $1. The 2026 budget is the third budget to be forwarded by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the National Assembly since he assumed office in 2023. But it's one document that the president hopes will genuinely set Nigeria on the path of economic prosperity. Omar Bazwaye, Arise News.
Yeah, well,
we have a budget.
we do have a budget that was presented. What did you make of President Bola Tinubu's presentation yesterday?
Well, I mean, first, I think we must commend the fact that at least before the end of the year, we got the president, just like last year, to present the budget estimate to the joint National Assembly as required by law. Like the story said, this is the third one that he will forward to the National Assembly. And the budget in size is growing in leaps and bounds. A budget of consolidation, renewed resilience, and shared prosperity, the president calls it. And at 58.18 trillion, of course, it is Nigeria's biggest budget proposal so far, But, there are areas that one can say, okay, maybe in a way we are beginning to turn the corner, given the fact that if we compare the economy with what happened last year, and the president did emphasize it, there's a 3.86% increase in what we had this year compared to what we had in 2024, which means that the economy grew by 3.98%. But then, if you look at this budget, we were thinking that the president will retain the budget size of last year, given that his performance so far hasn't been that fantastic, and therefore maybe you shouldn't be expanding the size when the current budget hasn't done exactly what you intended that it will do. But here we are, it was increased to 58.18 trillion.
And on some of those figures still, just before I was talking about the exchange rate, it's 1,400, hopefully to $1 exchange rate.
Assumptions
those are
the budget.
The assumptions. And I'm wondering how realistic those could be with the 1.8 million barrels per day oil production in our single budget cycle. So we're hopeful.
All the three key assumptions are slightly dicey.
Yeah.
Just like the $1 to 1,500, of last year, we saw that at a point at the beginning of the year, it was slightly more.
Yeah.
But we have seen that in the last, quarter of the year, it has come down to about 1,400 and something.
Yes.
So the government is hoping that next year maybe things will be better. That's why they are giving the assumption that it should be. They should peg the benchmark at 1,400. But then if you put crude oil benchmark at $64.85 per barrel, but we know that it's around about 60 now. Some other people are even projecting about 59. And which therefore means that if it goes down, it affects your projections.
Right.
At 1.8 million crude barrel per day that the government is projecting, as against 1.6 of the current year, we didn't even meet that figure.
And that's amidst all this global volatility that we have on ground right now.
Insecurity.
But like you said, we're hopeful.
Yeah.
But what do you make of the president promising an end to the three budgets in one?
I think that was the most fantastic, most hopeful,
I'm no economist,
most
but what's
commendable.
That?
Sorry?
I said I'm no economist, but exactly how has that been managing
because
to work?
we got into some of the dire straits, economically speaking, that we are in now, particularly during the second term of former President Buhari, when budgeting became a mess. And sadly, that's what President Tinubu has inherited, a situation where you are running three, not two.
Yeah.
You are not supposed to run two. It runs contrary to everything, finance and economy. But then it started with Buhari.
Yep.
And you have the National Assembly, particularly the Appropriation Committee, always defending that nonsense. So the president is saying that he will put an end to it.
No
and
more
that the
supplemental budget era.
What does it mean?
Tinubu has brought it to an end.
If you have tight budgeting, you know, of course, even in the corporate sector and in other, jurisdictions where government run efficiently, it starts with budgeting.
Yeah.
And you know that this is not just, it doesn't end with the president as presented. Where the issues are usually will now be when states also present that.
Exactly.
And when the agencies of government, we now see the breakdown. You now see a number of copy and paste, which we witnessed this year, witnessed last year, witnessed in 2023. It will look to you like those in charge of budgeting for many of the MDAs are just doing cut and paste. So does it mean that it is the same thing that you spent last year and in the previous year that you spend this year? However, I mean, let's
see how it goes.
Let's salute the president, because when he says that he's vowing to stop the era of overlapping budgets and perpetual rollovers, and that this is a reset, let's take him by his word and let's hope that things will change. It needs to change, and it says that all this nonsense will end by the end of March 2026, and by April, Nigeria will begin to run one single budget cycle. That should be the target, that he must hold the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Budget, and the DG of Budget, by,
let's all say amen to that.
In capital letters, amen to that.
All right.
Okay, so Nigeria, we hope that, we'll get it right this time around. We move on. Well, the joyful news broke within the week that the military regime in Burkina Faso had released the 11 Nigerian soldiers detained there after their aircraft made a forced landing in the Sahelian country. The soldiers were released after President Bola Tinubu sent a delegation led by Yusuf Tuga, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to meet with Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso's junta leader, on Wednesday. A statement issued by Al-Kazim Al-Bukadir, Tuga's spokesperson, said both sides amicably resolved the issue concerning the Nigerian Air Force pilots and crew. Good news, Awan, without a doubt.
Oh, yes. Very good diplomatic news for our foreign mission and the country as well, and ECOWAS in general.
And for the president, really,
yes, because
everything at the end of the day, the buck, stops on his desk.
Yeah.
But of course, there are issues that both the foreign ministry and, of course, the leadership of the military will have to watch out for carefully, particularly in the area of coming clean with Nigerians. You remember that when this thing happened close to 2 weeks ago, almost immediately, the response from the Nigerian military was that, the aircraft developed a fault.
Right.
It was on its way to Portugal.
Right.
So and that there was no detention of any sort.
That's why they had to
and
land.
That our soldiers were being treated right.
Fairly.
Of course, a few days after, it turned out that it was indeed a detention, and that, Burkina Faso will have none of what our guys were saying until they were clear about the mission and the need and the reason why they had to stop without authorization, according to them, in Bobo Dioulasso in Burkina Faso. Of course, all the ding-dong went on. Tuga had to go there with the authority of the Nigerian president. I believe that the Ghanaian president also, kind of played a role in that, given that Ghana and Burkina Faso, in spite of the fact that one wears, khaki and the other ones wears agbada, but there's a kind of a connect that I think that even when there are issues, we shouldn't just throw the baby away with the bad water. So maybe this is saying that maybe there are better ways to begin to deal with our brothers in the Sahel Confederation. Your Mali, your Guinea,
our fellows, our Niger.
Exactly, your Niger, etc. Because at the end of the day, how many are we in West Africa? What are the issues leading to some of the countries now turning to the military, for safety?
And honestly, we can't afford to be at loggerheads with our neighbors, our brothers. We're supposed to be the big brother of the region.
Yeah.
So this incident just shows that there is a peaceful way to talk about these things. It's good to see the foreign minister and the delegation from the NAF who went to go and sort this out, so to speak. Yeah. And also Ibrahim Traore, he's trying, we're trying to make sure that relationships don't sour, so our northern borders don't become more vulnerable. We're over here complaining about insecurity. It wouldn't be good to have any kind of small miscommunication in order to make things good. But we're happy our crew is back. They're on their way. I think they're in Portugal right now.
Yeah.
They will be on their way. But the big question is, okay, so they said the aircraft has issues, right? What does this say about our maintenance and our safety in terms of maintaining our vessels for long-range ferry missions, if it's so bad that they have to go down in a country that we might or might not have issues with, like, this is really serious stuff. So what about our maintenance culture and trying to make sure that the aircrafts are good?
Technical issues can develop at any time.
That's true.
But then, if trust is lacking in what you communicate to your citizens, that's where the bigger issue is for me. I mean, it's the same aircraft that that has now traveled to Portugal, and of course will come back to Nigeria safely. Hopefully.
So.
But it is how weight issues of this nature are communicated, to the people that is of concern to me. If there are issues with the aircraft, at what point did it develop? Because what we were told is that almost immediately after it took off. Why not in Ghana? Why not in Lomé? Why not in Benin, that are closer to us, and of course that we had better relationship with? Why does it have to be in Bobo Dioulasso?
So it has there's still a couple questions
question marks.
But this was a very good litmus test to show that there could be joint cooperation between the two nations, and even maybe in the future for regional stability, which is what everyone is hoping for in the future.
Which is why I say that what does Ghana see in Burkina Faso that is making President Mahama, who is our own friend, to be dealing with him in an amicable way that we are not able to do to deal with in that manner. The president is no longer the head of ECOWAS at this time, and so he doesn't have the burden of appearing as the Don Dada of West Africa.
Not the Don Dada.
if you know what I mean.
Of course.
So maybe it requires. I mean, if Tuga could go there and then Traore could do all this to everybody, all the army, to say that I mean no harm, but then I have to protect my territory. I think that this should be the beginning of a better relationship, not just with Burkina Faso, but with Niger, with all the other Sahelian countries within the confederation there. But at least we're thankful that we were able to resolve that.
Everything was peaceful.
And our guys are safe and sound.
And they are on their way back. We thank the Lord.
Absolutely. All right, we'll move
on.
All
right, in more news, a ruling by Nigeria's Supreme Court has this week been stoking an intense debate over the powers of the president to declare a state of emergency and the future of federalism. Now, in a landmark decision delivered last Monday, the Apex Court upheld President Bola Tinubu's constitutional authority under Section 305 to declare a state of emergency in any part of the country. But controversy has trailed the interpretation of the judgment regarding the powers to suspend elected officers. RRI's correspondent Godfrey Eshimoge has more details in this report.
This position of Nigeria's highest court comes after stating that it lacks jurisdiction to adjudicate the case instituted by 11 state governors. The court states that there was no area of dispute established between the governors and the presidency on the matter. Earlier media reports indicated that the court also affirmed that elected officials may be suspended during emergency rule, but only for a limited time, and critics like the main opposition party, PDP, argues that if this is so, the judgment will embolden an executive overreach and give the federal government powers to suppress citizens. But human rights lawyer Femi Falana clarifies that the ruling did not in any way endorse the dissolution of democratic structures, stressing that governors and state legislators cannot be permanently removed. Supporters of the government insist the judgment reinforces crisis management tools necessary to prevent chaos, but dissenting voices caution that the unchecked presidential discretion poses risks to democracy, while calling on the National Assembly to immediately begin the process of repealing Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution. Opposition leaders, in fact, warn it could reshape power dynamics ahead of the 2027 elections, while analysts remain divided on whether the ruling strengthens constitutional order or undermines state autonomy.
All right, so the Supreme Court, a 6-1 split decision.
6-1.
6-1 split decision. It was suit filed by 11 PDP states. Well, the president has the power to declare a state of emergency if he sees fit, temporarily suspending elected officials. We've seen it in Rivers State. This was the drama that played out this year, pretty much. There are a lot of questions if this is going to be a blow to federalism. Another discussion that has been had multiple times on this station all year, the fine line between restoring order and political interference.
Yeah.
What exactly is that? And of course, with Governor Fubara's previous suspension, what does this mean for future political crises in opposition-led states? We now see that the country pretty much is all being led to APC. We're becoming something of a one-party state. And when the justice system could be weaponized like this, it does cause pause for concern. But on the other hand, there are reasons why the president would need to step in and do such. It has happened in the past. I think it was Plateau State. There was.
It happened twice under Obasanjo and once under President Jonathan.
See, there we go, the historian. But, it's happened multiple times for different reasons. We just have to see how it plays out. But it is a little bit worrying. I don't know. What do you make of
I
it?
get your point, Hawa, but I'm sure that we'll come to talk a bit more about, the seeming drift towards one-party state when we take the next story. But on the constitutionality or otherwise of the president having the powers to not just to declare state of emergency, because that's very clear, in my opinion, in Section 305 of the Constitution. I think what the argument seems to be about and why opinion is so divided, even particularly among lawyers who are interpreting the Supreme Court's ruling on this matter, is does the president have the power to suspend
Elected
a governor
officials.
and elected officials? We saw that twice under Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, in Ekiti and in Plateau State. But under Jonathan, his own understanding of the Constitution was that I could declare state of emergency, but then he didn't choose to suspend the governors of the
officials.
3 northern states where insecurity was rife, absolutely, at that time. You read the fact that 11 PDP governors took the matter to court, and it was a case of jurisdiction. Do they have the locus when they couldn't prove that they were directly or indirectly impacted by what was happening in Rivers State? And I think that what many of the lawyers have submitted in interpreting the ruling is that the justices didn't particularly touch on the core matter of whether the president had the powers to suspend elected officials. That wasn't what was adjudicated upon, that it was basically to declare that, no, you do not have the locus to bring this case to us, and therefore the president was free under Section 305, to take the action that he took. And at that time, in any case, by the time the judgment was being given, the state of emergency 6 months in the first instance that the Constitution prescribed, and that if the situation persists, the president, through the National Assembly, also has the power, to extend it by another 6 months, which therefore means that whatever might be the issue, whether you declare a state of emergency or not, and whether we argue for the president that he has the powers to suspend or not to suspend, it can't proceed beyond 1 year. Either way. And in any case, usually it will be the 6 months. It depends on the president to now read the situation, whether to extend or not. And that in any case, all he will do is to recommend, that intervention to the National Assembly, who will now vote on it. Because whether the president wants it or not, if the National Assembly says no, you can't suspend the sitting
Mr.
president.
Steve, let's just be very honest. The National Assembly is probably never going to do that.
This current one, right?
This current one,
it looks
the
like that's the body
ones,
language is that they hardly, stand up
stamp.
to.
No, they
but
don't.
whether they do that or not, my point will be that it actually rests more with them than the president, because you have the authority to stop him. If they fail in stopping the president, then maybe we should blame the two of them.
But we're just hoping that it doesn't tempt the abuses of power, in certain situations where the politics heat up.
That should be our hope, and that is
and
why
legal guardrails are
every federal lawmaker must be responsible to their constituents so that you don't go there, go rogue on their constituents. Because what you are saying and the votes that you are making at the National Assembly should reflect what your people want.
100%.
Absolutely. All right, we proceed. Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang says President Bola Tinubu personally invited him to decamp from the People's Democratic Party in favor of joining the ruling All Progressives Congress. Mutfwang said that he made the decision to move in the interest of Plateau State after months of consultations and personal introspection. He claimed to have defected as a form of respect for Tinubu, who has shown a special interest in Plateau State and its challenges. The governor noted that there had also been the beckoning of the highly placed personalities, including fellow governors from APC.
Well, there goes the opposition. Okay, it's all the North Central states are gone. It's all APC.
Totally.
Okay, we knew this movement was coming. A lot of people have predicted this. Now, how is it going to transpire? Is this for political survival? Of course. It seems more for political survival than for the people of Plateau State. A lot of questions are being asked about aligning with the center, how much benefit it has for the individual versus the government and the people on ground. Yeah. And of course, PDP is completely unable to hold on to their heavy hitters. They've been taking losses all year. It's like we said, the one-party state is coming into full fruition, and it's just very questionable. Well, the infighting will also start, is what other analysts are predicting. It's too many big names in the kitchen, too many people cooking. The food is tasting strange, but hopefully hopefully things balance themselves out in order for our democracy to take some kind of action. I don't know. What do you make of it?
I approach this subject matter in two ways.
Okay.
First is to acknowledge the part of the deja vu that is happening. In 2007, when President Obasanjo was handing over to the late President Musa Yar'Adua, PDP, as a behemoth that it was at that time, had 31 states. 31 states.
Oh, how the tables have turned.
One for AC in Lagos, and then 3 for PDP. By that time, APP, for AMPP. So PDP had,
everyone.
It was after that then Anambra, went to Abga when Peter Obi went to court, and different things, and then things started changing, bit by bit. And so when we say that it looks like we're gravitating towards a one-party state, and I'm like, maybe, but then we've been here before.
Okay.
However, the difference, in my opinion, will be that as at that time, when PDP, was feeling, dandy and saying that, oh, this is Africa's largest party, we will rule for 60 years, everybody come on board. At least they were posturing to be winning elections. If you recall, between 1999 and 2003, AD, Alliance for Democracy, had all the 6 states in the Southwest. But then in the election of 2003, that brought in the likes of Ladoja, the likes of Gbenga Daniel in Ogun State, etc., or in the line Osun State, there was an election because Obasanjo was the president and he felt, I can't be a Yoruba president ruling over 36 states and all the 6 states in my domain of Southwest will be AD. But at least he got them through elections. My fear for what is happening at this time is that everybody that is coming on board of the APC are basically moving either on their own volition or, as Mutfwang said, that the president invited me and I do not want to be disrespectful. And therefore, let me join the big party that APC represent. I don't think that it shows good democratic values.
No, not at all.
When you have a Pastor Eno in
the South.
Akwa Ibom State, the Delta man, everybody is basically, it's like, oh, if we move to you and preach the gospel of APC to you, you just have to accept it. I do not think that is what President Bola Tinubu stands for. Because at the time that the PDP onslaught was at its peak, Tinubu was the only person in the Southwest and in the entire Southern Nigeria who said that, as they say, we die here. He refused. How come he was able to play that sort of politics against Obasanjo, against Yaradua, against Jonathan, took him to Code of Conduct Bureau, paraded him, docked him and everything, and yet he didn't give up. And then we have a Mutuang. We have a Sheriff Oborowori. We have practically everybody.
Everyone's defected.
Fubara is now claiming to be a progressive attack. Everybody is now, without elections.
Yeah.
Without elections, that their people said, okay, we are tired of PDP, let's move to APC.
Yeah.
It is the governors on their own that are just decamping. And I think that it is... So when people are now afraid of one party state, I think that the fear is legitimate when you do not have the governors who are defecting coming in through elections. At least PDP did that. You may say that, okay, maybe some of the elections were rigged, etc. But at least go through elections. Wait till 2027 and then, decamp to APC. Let's see whether you can win election that way.
Let's see if it happens. But there's going to be loggerheads and a traffic jam. It's way too many people in one party and way too many personalities. Let's just see how it all plays out. There's a little bit of time that we have. Well, that's all that we have on the week that was.